All right, so 3.2, we're going to be talking about perfect cubes, cube roots, and the equations of the form x cubed equals p. So things to know, vocab to know. A perfect cube is a number that the cube, or that is, I guess that should go in there. That is the cube of an integer. So, like, 2 cubed equals 8. So, 8 is the perfect cube because it is the cube of the integer 2. And we'll talk more about those. A cube root is the inverse function of cubing. So if we do the cube, and this is what it'll look like. This is a cube root symbol. It's the square root with the 3 written in the little check area. So if I do the cube root of 8, the answer is going to equal 2. So it's that inverse operation. Now, let's make a list of perfect cubes, like we did with perfect squares. All right. So, sorry that took a bit. So if I take 1 cubed, that'd be 1 times 1, which is 1 times 1 is 1. And then 2 cubed, we did a little, or just on the last slide, 2 cubed is 8. 3 cubed would be 3 times 3, which is 9, and 9 times 3 is 27. 4 cubed would be 64. 5 cubed equals 125. 6 cubed equals 343. Whoops, I skipped one. 343 is 7 cubed. 216. I knew that didn't feel right. 7 cubed is 343. 8 cubed equals 512. 9 cubed equals 729. And 10 cubed equals 1000. Now, here's the difference about cubes, though. There is a different answer if it is a negative number cubed. Whereas with squares, if we square a negative, it's going to equal a positive because a negative times a negative is a positive. But with cubes, if I do negative 1 cubed, I'm going to end up with negative 1. If I do negative 2 cubed, I'm going to get negative 8. And negative 3 cubed would give us a negative 27. And I hope you're catching on to the pattern here. The negative 4 cubed is a negative 64, and a negative 5 cubed is a negative 125. And then the pattern keeps going. So, when it comes to cubes, the sign stays. And the reason that is if I take negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, here negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4, but then I'm going to take that positive 4 times negative 2, which equals a negative 8. And so that's why perfect cubes, it matters the sign in front of it. So that we need to keep that in mind as we go through these. All right, so here's our concept, major concept that we need to take away from our chapter today. So we're going to consider the following. This would be that x cubed equals p, p being any integer. So we're going to consider the following. I have x cubed equals 125, and I need to find what x equals. And so in order to do that, I'm going to rewrite this. I'm going to take the cube root, and remember, to show cube roots, we put the little 3 inside our radical, our square root symbol. And when I take the cube root, that undoes the cube. That's that inverse operation. And so then x will equal, and then the cube root of 125, according to our list, 125, would be 5. Now, last section, when we took square roots, we had to have both the positive and the negative answer. With cube roots, there's only the one answer. Now, if it was cube root, or x cubed equals a negative 125, and we do the cube root, again, this should be easy work shown, and this is what I am looking for. Then x would equal a negative 5. So whatever the sign is in the cube root is the sign of your answer. So let's practice them. We have x cubed equals 8, so I'm going to do the cube root, and so we're going to end up with x equals, and the cube root of 8, we'll go back to your list if you need to, the cube root of 8 is 2. And so then that is my answer. Again, easy work. Don't get lazy. Don't get lazy. So over here we had x cubed equals a negative 27. I'm going to take the cube root so that I get x. And cube root of a negative 127 of a negative 27 is a negative 3. So again, cube root, I'm trying to find what times itself gives us 27, or negative 27, or 8. So that's what we are looking for. Now, when we do fractions, it's just like when we're doing square roots. So when I take the cube root and the cube root, really, w will equal the cube root of 8 over the cube root of 343. So then w will equal, the cube root of 8 we just did, which is 2, and the cube root of 343, which is on our paper, is 7, and so my answer is 2/7. So it's going to be the same thing here. We have z cubed equals a negative 27 over 1,000. So I'm going to take the cube root. I'm going to take the cube root of the top over the cube root of the bottom. And here's the thing. I know that that negative gets added into one of these. So all that matters is, since we're taking the cube root, the negative needs to be on the outside, or, it needs to be a negative answer. So cube root of 27 is 3, and the cube root of 1,000 is 10. And there's our answer. Now, if you're working with something, do we have, no, well, we'll get, yes, I'll do it on this example, the last example. So what I'm just fumbled over, silly me, is I'll go over how to use the yellow calculators and what buttons to push as we do this problem. In an aquarium in the shape of a cube, an aquarium in the shape of a cube has a volume of 1,256. So if you remember volume, so I'm going to draw, a quick cube here. So when we find volume, we take the length times the width times the height. And so with a cube, length, width, and height are technically, not that my picture shows it, are technically all the same. So for a cube, that would be side cubed equals our volume. So that's just refreshing you on how we found volume. So here we know that volume is 1,256 inches cubed. So we want that exact length. So exact length means not decimal. And if we need to leave it in our cube root. So volume is 1,256. So 1,256 will equal our side cubed. That's how we find our side. And then from here we would cube root s cubed and cube root the 1,256. Now 1,256 is not on the list that I gave you, so then we go to our handy dandy calculator, and on your calculator there is a button that is called second, and you'll push it, and then you're gonna push the key. And if you need me to help you with this, bring me the calculator, but on yours I believe it has an X inside the root symbol. That's the one you want to push, which I'd have to look back at the keys on the key buttons on our calculators, but it should be second, and then look for this symbol that looks like this, and then you can type in your number. So here I have on my calculator, and I'm going to type in 1,256, and it is not a whole number, so when I go to give the exact length, I'm going to give that the cube root, s equals the cube root of 1,256. So, inches would be our answer. So that's our exact answer. Now, since we just found that it is not perfect, it didn't give us an integer answer, we're going to approximate to the nearest tenth, so that's 1 decimal place. We already typed it into the calculator, so that's going to be about 10 point. This is what I see on my calculator. And then it keeps going. So if we're going to the tenths, I'm rounding to the 7, or I'm rounding to the first place, so I'm going to look at the 8. The 8 is greater than 5, so we're going to round the 7. So our answer is going to be approximately 10.8 inches. And normally, when it comes to these calculator buttons, normally this key, the square root, or the nth root, so in this case we would push, ooh, that's what I forgot. You want to hit 3 and then that button. But seriously, just come see me and I will help you with the calculator and what buttons to push. Because this is not, again, this is not the same as a square root. You cannot use the square root key. So please come see me to understand how to use the calculator. I cannot say this enough. Please come see me if you do not know what buttons to push. Anyway, that is the end of our notes. So just remember, cube root is the opposite of cubing something. So we're trying to find what number times itself 3 times gives us the integer that we are given. Excuse me. And a perfect cube are the, when I take the cube root, I get a whole number answer. So that's the end of section 2. Until next time.